This is part 3 of my recap on my instant death ability is so overpowered. You can watch the previous parts with the link in the description below at the end of the last episode. While on the way, many monsters were seen attacking Yogiri and Danora. At that time, Danora asked Yogiri the reason, but at that time, Yogiri asked Danora not to worry about that. And because Danora was worried about the limitations of Yogiri's powers, Yogiri said that his powers had no limits and could be used as he pleased. Then they arrived at a city that looked very modern and saw a very large hotel there. They then decided to spend the night at that place. When they arrived at the place, they saw someone greet them. That person was named Tachibana, who was a classmate of their previous class. It can be seen that Tachibana, who at that time had several slaves at that place, all of them seemed very obedient to Tachibana. They then introduced themselves to Danora and Yogiri based on Tachibana's orders. The fifth is named Erica, the fourth is named Stepani, the third is named Chelsea, the second is named Euphemia, and the first is named Riza. Riza is also the captain of these slaves. Because they were all making uncomfortable faces at Danora, Danora felt annoyed with all of them for being too aggressive towards her. And after that, something ridiculous happened. Tachibana then asked Danora to become his concubine. Danora, who heard that, became confused, but Tachibana continued saying that if Danora was worried about Yogiri, he also didn't mind making her his slave. In fact, Yogiri could have killed Tachibana straight away, but Yogiri thought he even lost his intention to kill when he saw a person who had no sense like Tachibana.
いやー、すまない。しばらく黙っててくれ。
で俺たちを置いていった力を手に入れたのかしら。
バナ君はもともとこんな過剰だったの。
ずっと面白いところだ。
ここで会ったのも何区の愛人にならない？
はあ？
本来男は受け入れ。
逆に面白くなってきた。
The reason Tachibana is confident is because he is in one of the strongest classes called Dominator. It can control low-level enemies as its own slaves. At that time, Tachibana explained to Danora about what had happened to his classmates. When they were gathered, Otori, who had a consultant class, met Tachibana and explained several situations to him, that Tachibana had the potential to be closest to becoming a sage. Because based on Otori's explanation, when Tachibana has slaves even though they are at level 1, those slaves will give XP to Tachibana even though Tachibana does not take any action. Otori also explained the reason he said this to Tachibana. Not for anything, but just to be safe so that they don't become livestock when not a single sage has been created. This is an Otori survival strategy, and for that reason why Tachibana is currently abandoning his friends. Yogiri, who heard that, also understood what Tachibana intended. Seeing Danora, who at that time rejected him, Tachibana said to Danora that he could think about the answer later. And after that, Tachibana left Danora and Yogiri. The scene then moves to another location where Len is seen, who is facing the aggressor. As a vampire sage, Len has immortal strength with extraordinary recovery abilities. However, the battle had not yet been shown, and the scene moved again to show Danora and Yogiri, who are still resting. Danora was bored at that time because it was the third day that they hadn't done anything. But suddenly Danora was confused when she saw a cloud of smoke that was clumping right in the city, and there was a very big commotion in that place. It turned out to be an attack from Len's previous troops, who were tasked with immediately moving to the city of Hanabusa. The leader was named Masayuki, who was leading the immortal troops from the undead unit. And after that, Mako Mukeo explained everything to Danora, that they actually had the smell of a corpse. Hearing this, Danora felt confused as to why humans died in this world too easily. Then we are shown a person who is sneaking into the room. It turns out that the Mokomoko is very useful for Danora. Because at that time, Mokomoko said to Danora that there was someone who was watching them with evil intentions in that place. But that person could cover himself and not even the Mokomoko could see him. And therefore, Danora decided to call Yogiri and wake him up. However, in Yogiri's dream, he then had a flashback about his childhood with a woman in his dream. And after that, Yogiri woke up and said he would immediately go to Danora's room. At that time, Yogiri used his detection ability and realized that there was someone there. The person who was hiding was none other than Erica. And after that, Yogiri then used his power, which made Erica most likely already dead. After that, Yogiri explained to Danora that there was something wrong in this place because previously the enemy who was on assignment had intended to attack Danora. At that time, Danora was confused about why she was being targeted. On the other hand, Tachibana, who saw Erica's signal disappear, became confused about what had actually happened to Erika. Yogiri was with Danora, who intended to escape from that place. While they were discussing, Yogiri wondered why Danora could act so calm But actually, Danora was not that calm. He's still scared, but he's starting to get used to it. Then we are flashed with Tachibana's battle against something, and the battle against a level 100 monster takes place in that place. It seemed like Tachibana could win decisively against the monster. Even after the monster was defeated, Tachibana then bound the monster as his slave. And after that, Tachibana became increasingly curious about Erika's condition and saw the appearance seen by Erika, who suddenly fainted at that place. As an assassin, it should be impossible for Erika to be killed that easily, so it's possible that something went wrong in that place. Euphemia then explained to Tachibana the possibility that Erika felt jealous of the woman named Danora and intended to get rid of her or take her to Mr. Tachibana. Tachibana, who heard that, was also shocked, because apparently slaves could also do things that were detrimental to him. Because it was related to a personal matter, Tachibana felt annoyed that if it was true, Danora might run away from him. Then at that time, he ordered Riza and Chelsea to immediately look for Danora and secure her. The scene then shifts to showing Len's battle, which even though it has been attacked many times, the creature can also recover very quickly. Even the darkness is still moving without stopping at all, even though it is fighting a sage. On the other hand, Yogiri and Danora, who were intending to escape at that time, were suddenly intercepted by Riza. She then sealed them both to take them immediately to Yuki Tachibana. However, when Yogiri touched it, the protector suddenly shattered, which made Riza scared. Even Riza's follow-up attack was stopped, and at that time Yogiri killed the stick used by Riza so that it could no longer release any more power. At that time, Riza was afraid because Yogiri could kill whatever he said, and therefore she was willing to answer all of Yogiri's questions. However, because Yogiri was too smart, he asked Riza where she had hidden another stick, and because of that, Riza brought out a stick from an unexpected place. At that time, Yogiri also asked Riza what about the others, whether they were also ordered to do the same thing as him. But unexpectedly, another slave from Tachibana arrived who was already above Yogiri and Danora. But strangely, with extraordinary alacrity, Danora was suddenly able to slam the body with a martial arts technique that he had never even learned. Seeing this, Moko felt that Danorayu's talent had finally emerged. However, it turned out that what Danora was slamming at that time was actually a puppet army of one of Tachibana's slaves. It is possible that the doll is Chelsea's power. It is also known that Riza still has another stick hidden in her ear, and when he intended to launch an attack on Yogiri, Yogiri immediately killed Riza on the spot.
これだけです。で、高藤君もまじまじと見ない。
バナから壇ノ浦さんを連れ。
同じ命令を受け。
壇ノ浦さん。
お、野浦流の才能が開花。何これ。で一人で事足りると思って。
Chelsea, who was controlling all the dolls, then ordered all her troops to immediately detain them both. But suddenly, all of his puppet troops died instantly at that place, which made Chelsea even more afraid and even wanted to cry. This also did not apply to the puppets next to him. All of his puppet troops had apparently perished as a result of Yogiri's powerful attack, which killed him instantly. And after that, Yogiri appeared right in front of her, which made Chelsea cry and beg her not to harm or hurt her puppet troops. This made Yogiri and Danora feel that they were bad people, and the situation was reversed. The scene then shows Tachibana again. The shocked Tachibana says that Riza is dead. Chelsea even loses her will to fight and gives all the information to Yogiri and Danora. At that time, Tachibana said to Euphemia that Yogiri could kill whatever he thought of. Euphemia, who heard that, was also shocked. While they were on their way, they suddenly saw a large army of insects intending to attack them. But when he wanted to be killed instantly, Yogiri said that the flying cockroach could fall right on Danora's head, and he immediately became scared. At that time, Danora became angry with Tachibana, and because of that, they just passed by the group of cockroaches. But on the other hand, Tachibana, who saw all this, felt happy, thinking that it was impossible for Yogiri's abilities to be used when he was surrounded. He thought that this was Yogiri's weakness. In fact, at that time, Euphemia told Tachibana not to chase an enemy whose strength was still unknown. But Tachibana didn't listen to Euphemia's advice and still wouldn't back down. Just then, Tachibana then asked the cockroach troops to kill Yogiri. Yogiri, who saw that, also realized that everyone was looking for an opportunity to kill him. And for that reason, Yogiri said to Danora that he would kill Tachibana. If everything went as he planned, it wouldn't be difficult to use. Even though Yogiri did not see Tachibana's whereabouts, he then concentrated and killed Tachibana through the summon of the cockroach monster. And at that moment, Tachibana immediately fell and died instantly.
高藤よぎりを殺せ。
高藤君にたかられるとか死ねる。
淡々と狙ってるって感じ。橘勇気を殺そうの考えてる通りなら大元へ繋がった。橘勇気死ね。
But it turns out that even though Tachibana is dead, the cockroach army is still not dead. Yogiri then said that perhaps because of Tachibana's death, the cockroach troops were starting to get out of control, which made Danora even more panicked. On the other hand, Stephanie, who at that time had tried to cure Tachibana, still couldn't cure him. Because she was free from Euphemia's control, she immediately left the place and was really surprised to see a large shadow in that place. Even then, another sage appeared on the scene and asked Euphemia whence she had appeared. And at that time, Len intended to control all the information that Euphemia had by making her his follower. The scene then returns to showing Yogiri and Danora, who are confused when they see the commotion that is happening in the city, and you can see that many zombies have gathered there. Danora, who saw all this, shouted in annoyance, "Why is the world in isekai suddenly having so many zombie attacks all over the place?" And episode 3 ends here. Thank you so much for staying on this channel and watching our videos. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel, so we can keep you up to date with our latest content. See you in the next video.